Haval H7 is a new model that is coming to our shores in Australia in 2025, third quarter, according to drive.com.au. But this wonderfully looking car is known as something else in the world out there. It is known as Haval Dargo or Haval Big Dog. In Russia, Haval Dargos have had several different versions that were rolled out onto the market already for the past couple of years at least. It's a very beloved kind of car there. It's very popular car there, and Russian reviews are such a wonderful thing to tap into because it represents the real ownership, the real users, the real people who are using these cars day in, day out. So what better than tap into yet another channel and give them credit and promote the channel, in this case a very small channel by the lovely person called Evgeny, who is sharing his ownership of experience of ownership of his Haval Dargo. Actually, let me correct myself here a little bit before I keep talking to you about Haval Dargo and Haval H7. I said that it's the same model exactly, it's just a different name, except I am wrong in this particular case. So here is the correction. Haval Dargo is still existing as a separate lineup of vehicles on the Russian market, and H7, believe it or not, is coming as H7 to the Russian market as well as it's coming to Australian market, except to Australia it's coming in the third quarter of 2025, and in Russia, by the looks of it, they are saying that they're coming to Russia. The H7s are coming to Russia in the first half of 2025. So they're going to get these vehicles, these particular exact vehicles, hybrids, much sooner than we do. Still, I believe that my general comparison here of Haval Dargo and experience of the owner to what we can potentially expect from the geometry, from the layout and other kind of things, speculatively of course, of Haval H7 would be similar. First of all, belongs to the same lineup. Second of all, even looking here optically with kind of naked eye, comparing Dargo X, Dargo and Haval H7, they are all same platform. They look exactly the same, except the drivetrain is going to be different. But this review today, the one that I'm offering you as a translation, is not related to the drivetrain. It's related to usability and other things I'm about to dive deeply into. His kilometrage is reaching 19,000 kilometers on the clock, which is a fair amount of time to spend with the car, and mechanically nothing is wrong with the car. That's the TLDR within the first 2 minutes of this video, if that's all you want to know. But there is more to car ownership than just mechanical problems that shouldn't be there in the first 5 minutes of ownership, right? So Evgeny once again says to us here that he is not a mechanic, and he is looking at it from a utilitarian perspective, as a family man who is driving this car, providing kind of this mostly user experience based feedback, and broadly categorizing every point into minuses and pluses of this vehicle in day-to-day use. So, minuses. First, he mentions that the door opening sensor, you know, the one where you place your hand on the opening, on the handle of the door, and it unlocks or locks. So when you place the door opening sensor is placed under the door handle. That's where it actually positioned. So for some reason, if you have exited the car briefly, didn't want to lock it, and want to then grab the handle and open the car, it locks instead of doing what you expected, instead of opening. So it's very inconvenient. So to unlock it, you actually need, if you're not using the key, you need to use that pinch kind of gesture to pinch it with 2 fingers, and it's very inconvenient, as Evgeny says here, rather than just your normal kind of organic sort of desire to just grab the handle, pull it, and get it open. So apparently it's not intuitive particularly, at least how his model worked. The front grille he's talking about, that has obviously nice design. Design is great, we're not even talking about it here. But it has these massive gaps that let in a lot of dust, dirt and everything else, especially if you're doing some off-roading or a lot of highway driving. So he says that in his opinion, the mesh, some kind of mesh of this to protect the radiator, the aftermarket protection of the radiator is very much required. And he thinks that this should be just installed stock standard, but unfortunately GWM doesn't do it. Stock paint, he says, is average. There is certainly some kind of underlay. It's not just a little bit of thin layer of paint and then the metal. However, he says that even with relatively careful, nothing reckless driving, he still has already a few chips here and there, a few scuffs. So he doesn't even know where they came from. The seat cushions, he starts with the back ones, are very soft. Kind of the memory foam looks like, if it's a memory foam, we can assume only here is very soft. So if you install, let's say, a baby seat, then apparently once you take it out, the dips and dents will be visible there for a while and will take time to fill out again and go back to normal state if you, let's say, you were driving around with baby seat and then decided to sell this car after a year or so. Who knows exactly, your mileage will vary. There is no angular adjustment to the back seat or the passenger seat, which is unfortunate. And maybe an issue for you if you're planning to drive with a family or maybe with your elderly parents or someone else, having them regularly at the back of your car for longish distances. It's not critical, but he kind of points out that that adjustment is not there, at least in his model. The way rear aircon vents and system works also is very interesting because no one else pointed it out, at least I've never heard of it. But those rear aircon vents, that aircon system, can be apparently accidentally or purposefully turned on without the driver having any indicator anywhere on the dash in front of him showing that that rear seat aircon is on. So let's say a very basic use case of kids sitting there banging their feet as they sit there in their little baby restraints or whatever, not baby restraints but just child seat. The situations where that accidental banging with the foot and turning it on could be numerous. It could be blasting there and you would have no idea. Maybe nitpicky, and he was very detailed here, but I think it's a fair point of the safety belts, especially the front seats. They're being stitched somewhat crudely with these massive kind of bendy seams, or I don't know what you want to call them, that you would feel, and they certainly, it's not even about the looks, it's about how they feel when you wear a seatbelt as a driver tightly. It's a small thing, but comfort is important, especially in the long distance driving, so here we can definitely see it. This one definitely is another small thing, but well, here it is anyway, since Evgeny is mentioning it. He says the driver's sunshade is not particularly wide, especially when you turn it to the side to protect yourself from sideways sun if you happen to drive on a highway or wherever you are. But it can happen in such a way that you're driving somewhere where that sideways protection is important to you. So obviously it is to Evgeny. So he clearly drives a lot during the time of day when the sideways sun is an issue evidently, which is why he even created this ingenious, prepare to laugh, cardboard extension so that the sun protection element actually does its job. Good on you, Evgeny. What can I say, mate? You made it work for yourself, but others need to be aware of it as well. Buttons that open and close the windows are placed rather uncomfortably here, at least according to him, where an averagely sized driver would have to bend his arm and forearm quite unnaturally to reach especially the two buttons that open and close rear door windows. Evgeny thinks that they were shifted just that little uncomfortable bit lower, kinda on the door's kind of handle area, because of that massively exaggerated and protruding door handle, which I, by the way, like, but they had to sacrifice something, so they shifted those buttons and it affected the usability. Sunroof, he says, very interestingly, he says that it closes itself automatically. If he left it open, apparently he finds it closing automatically under some conditions that he could not determine exactly where it's coming from. I have no idea. Maybe it's something to cross-check when you're buying this car. Maybe there is some kind of, I don't know, some kind of sensor or something else that triggers it, but it's unclear to him. He says that the horn doesn't work as you'd expect it to work, where when it's kind of mechanically connected to some wires, to some sensors there, and you press quickly in the center of the steering wheel, you would expect those wires to quickly become into contact with each other, theoretically, yeah, if you were to imagine how it works, and the horn to sound as in a prolonged way or in a short way as you would expect it to. So if you wanted to do just a quick beep beep, you should be able to do it just to warn someone of your kind of, you know, you being somewhere there, driving out of your driveway perhaps, just to warn them, not to like massively blast out like a massive honk, right? So apparently here it's impossible because this feature is clearly electronically controlled, as well as the sensor or the electronics not being that completely on the money, straight there, very reactive to your press. So there is that tiny, barely noticeable delay that no matter how lightly or quickly you press that center of the steering wheel to use your horn, apparently you will always let out one big blast of a honk instead of just doing that little beep beep. If that's important to you, keep that in mind. There is no built-in Satnav, first of all, so they saved on that. And he says there is Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, but only wired. And without the wire, without connecting your phone, which some people don't want to do, or some people struggle with wires, there is no navigation. He doesn't know about our sponsors or any other like kind of producers of wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay solutions, but we have a few, we work with a few. It's crazy because the original video, like I said, was posted only 7 months ago, so mid-2024 by the looks of it, and it's definitely not ancient times. So this just proves the point that a lot of car owners do not take advantage of those very inexpensive wireless CarPlay or Android Auto solutions. I don't know why, but again, a shameless and very timely put plug here of our sponsors, let's say Autocast, CarLinkit, there are lots of others in the description to my videos. They offer discounts. Get yourself an inexpensive wireless adapter and stop suffering like Evgeny here. Not enough physical buttons, he's calling out as well. There are some, quite obviously, but he says it's not enough. He would have liked to see more. Too much reliance on the touchscreen. I agree with him. There are quick menus and stuff, so yes, there are some gestures that these systems support. It reminds me so much of my Haval H7 2022 model, but I can tell you that this software looks scarily similar to in what he's using, and this car clearly is a couple of years younger than my Haval H6 was, and it's not changed. That software clearly has not changed all that much, so I can only hope that the brand new H7 coming our way in 2025 will be different. He says that he spends a lot of time kind of trying to navigate between different menus. It's rather confusing, or some function can be concealed or simply unavailable. Digital instruments panel and themes generally looks exactly the same as my old Haval H6, with that planet there on the side, with speedometer number being on the side, and all I wanted was either an analog kind of arm there, maybe even digital, but looking like there is like this little arm showing to you where speedo is and all that stuff. It's not too much to ask, but instead they created this convoluted weird theming that is really not functional. I really do not understand why GWM is so tone deaf when they have access to their own owned version of these digital instruments clusters, such as they've used in their pickup trucks, in their GWM Canon Ute, for example. I loved their instruments cluster, and I'm sure Evgeny would have loved it, and such a rugged kind of looking Haval Dargo or H7 would have benefited from it as well. Who knows? Who knows? He's also briefly mentioning here that adjustment of the brightness of these themes and what he sees there on the instruments cluster is really strange and not particularly comfortable. So what he has to do is, he's always using this navigation unit, he switched the theme to night mode so that it's a bit darker, and then he maxed the brightness of the screen setting. So that's how he deals with it. I don't know, maybe his eyes are so sensitive, maybe he drives at night mostly, maybe he does Uber driving. He actually is not elaborating on this, so I don't know. But you fill in the gaps here, my friends. We're just tapping in here into practical ownership insights. That's what my channel has always done, and that once again is what we're doing here. Driver's position he briefly talks about, and the steering wheel angle. It looks like the tilt is not adjustable. It's strange, because I know that telescopically not all steering wheels are adjustable. But here it looks like even the tilt is not adjustable, because he keeps saying that the angle could be better, this and that, it's not tilted the right way for him to feel super comfortable. It took a while for him to get used to it. I have no idea, Evgeny. I hope you know that tilt is normally adjustable. I hope you know that. But who knows? Maybe it's not adjustable in Dargo. Let's just double check, you and I, my friends, when H7 comes our way. There is also creaking of some plastic elements, such as this massive handle on the A pillar. It's strong and solid, it looks like strong and solid, but if someone grabs onto it, you can hear the creaking. I'm just removing the original sound from these videos just so that it doesn't interfere with my translation, but there was some creaking, I can assure you of that. Strange, very strange, but obviously not a showstopper. Side mirrors he's mentioning are somewhat small and not angled downward enough, so he kind of thinks that he could have used a little bit more of a view of the lower sort of angles and blind spots of the vehicle, but apparently this is not comfortable for him. Once again, I'm pretty sure that electrically powered side mirrors are all adjustable. I am just noting it here, translating it kind of truthfully to the original content, but you and I probably need to double check before we are signing on the dotted line and buying this vehicle. And yes, I would have bought an H7 if it was coming my way. Hell, I bought H6, and this H7 is so much hotter than H6. I will tell you that straight away, even with all these little nitpicky things that Evgeny is telling us about here. Hey, he's just warning us. It's fine. I'm sure it is fine. Now listen, on to pluses. A few pluses. Like I said to you, this is not a disassembly, this is not a mechanical review. He's not even pretending to be a mechanic. He's just an average Joe who tries to tell us about his ownership, and largely he loves it. Largely he does. He points out explicitly these things. He says that the number of numerous niches, pockets, handles, all of this is very, very comfortable for himself and for his family to climb in and out and take advantage of. It cannot be understated just how much it helps with the general travel and family utility of the vehicle. Sound insulation, he says, is great, and he compares it to his previously owned Nissan X-Trail. Don't know what model, don't know how old, but he says that it's better, much better here. So let's take it for what it is. He even compares it more to Korean cars, Korean standards, which I guess is good to hear. He says that soft surfaces of the door panels, especially the driver's panels, are pleasant, and you would normally not think that you would interact with them or touch them often enough to even care much, but you do. This feeling and comfort kinda adds up to a much better ownership experience. Wonderful. I quite enjoyed my softer but more leathery as opposed to softer surfaces of my Haval H6, so I guess this is somewhat similar here. He talks about the large and very wide elbow rest. Again, depends on your own size, of course, if that's enough for you. But averagely sized Evgeny here, and presumably his partner, he says they can drive very comfortably with two people both, presumably putting at least one of the elbows on that place. Performance on the road, including the DCT performance, are okay. I had similar feelings about my H6. I didn't like electronics and ELK and kind of electronic assistance systems, which Evgeny here does not unfortunately elaborate on, but GWM, Great Wall Motor have decently tuned their dual clutch transmission compared to my experience with MG HS 2021 model anyway, and Evgeny maybe had other experiences, but here he's quite happy. Fuel economy, he says that if you drive very conservatively, not exceeding like 85-90 kilometers an hour, not pushing too much, not accelerating too much, yada yada, all that kind of stuff, he says that on a highway you could have as little as 7 liters per 100 kilometers, which once again proves my theory that it is purely a petrol vehicle that he's driving, not a hybrid. And he says that on a highway maximum that he has seen is about 10 liters per 100 kilometers, which is fine. The larger the speed, obviously the higher fuel consumption, because the boxy design of the body of the SUV clearly takes its toll here. It's not aerodynamic at all. And in the city, he says fuel economy is ranging between 12 to 14 liters, which is definitely not making this car economical, not by a long shot, absolutely not, comparable to my Subaru, but it's a largish vehicle. It's a largish, boxy vehicle, and yeah, and that's what it is. Like I said, overall, Evgeny here says that he's very, very happy with the vehicle. He's super happy. He hopes that those little kinks and little things get ironed out by Great Wall Motor in the next versions, in the other versions, which is again presumably the one that's coming our way to Australia. His version looks very, very close to what we're seeing here on the promotional materials from drive.com.au, the ones that they referred to from Great Wall Motor on H7 coming to Australia, and surely they have ironed out some kinks, but also surely some of those things such as not adjustable angles of the back seat, the strangely implemented controls and indicators of the rear air conditioning system, and other things that we talked about, they probably could still annoy you if your uses, if your frame, if everything else kinda is comparable to Evgeny's experience here. I hope you've enjoyed this. Again, this is not pretending to be a thorough disassembly or something like that. If H7 is coming our way, it's great news for Australia, and there are disassembly videos of all the models, mind you, but it's still going to be the same kind of chassis, the same kind of stuff. So do talk to me in the comments down below if you want me to post more videos on Haval H7, aka Dargo, and I will. And I look forward to seeing this vehicle from GWM on our shores ASAP, so that I can take it for a test drive. Why not? Maybe I would like to buy one. Who knows? I've done worse things in my life. Thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this. Give the video a like if you haven't already, and subscribe for more. Goodbye for now.